Well, this is J.W. Ross, and I'm gonna be interviewing him about World War II. When you heard the war in Germany and the expanding empire? What did you think about it?
Well, I was about, I guess, about 15 years old, and I really didn't. I really wasn't concentrating much on the war. I was, going to school and playing basketball. And I really didn't think too much about it. I knew it was really something serious, that you could think about. But I guess I didn't really think a whole lot about it. I went on with my life, enjoying my life. And I guess I was just too young at that time to really think about politics or anything like that and war. So I really wasn't too concerned at that time.
Okay. Where were you at the time of the war? Like, were you here in Texas or were you living somewhere else?
At the time of World War II?
Yeah.
Well, I lived in Arkansas. I lived up in the Ozarks. I lived on a farm. We hunted, and raised crops. We raised pigs and cattle. And I was just a farm boy at that time.
Okay.
And that's where I was born and lived. All my life at that time. I hadn't traveled or anything like that.
Oh, okay. When you heard about D-Day on June 6, 1944, were you like excited or were you worried or just anxious to hear about it?
Well, at that time, 1944, D-Day, I was already in the military.
Where?
No, wait, let me back up. No, I was in California at that time. We were harvesting fruit, harvesting peaches and fruit. I was with my family. I hadn't entered the military at that time. And certainly, I heard about it. We had the radio. Didn't have TV back then. We had we heard about the war. And I wasn't too. I didn't think a whole lot about it really. I was just I was a really poor, living in a really poor family. We had to work hard, just to make a living. We didn't have time to think very much about, things outside of just making a living. So I really, like I was saying, I really didn't think a whole lot about the war up to that time. I was concerned about, especially during Pearl Harbor, in that time. That was really the time, to really be concerned. The war had already been going on quite a while. And I was just working, earning a living, with my family.
How did you feel about the United States joining the war first at Germany?
You mean against Germany?
Yeah. How did you feel about that?
Well, I feel like they made the right choice. Germany was. I think they were really on the side, really the bad side of the war. They were trying to expand, and so I think Germany really got what they really deserved. What came to them, They deserved losing the war. I think it would have been. I think it would have been really terrible if they'd have won the war.
Okay. Did you know anyone that went to Germany or like in Europe, and did they see any action or anything?
Well, I knew some of my friends in school were in the war, and some of them were wounded. I knew people who were killed in the war. And yes, I did know pretty well about it. About everybody that I knew were enlisting or being drafted, And so I knew quite a few people that went to war. I had a cousin that was served with me on the ship, and I was in the Navy, and I was drafted in the Navy, and he served on the ship. I could look out to see his ship a lot of times, and it'd be in the same convoy we were in. And I had another cousin who was in Alaska. He served in the Aleutians. You know, the Japanese took part of the Aleutians. They were, you know, we run them out of the Aleutian. So I did. I knew people were hurt, wounded, and people were killed. And some, you know, were killed. But my memory's kind of foggy right now about, you know, it's been a long time.
Yeah. So you said you were you were drafted to the military.
I was drafted
to the Navy.
And I got to pick the service that I wanted, and I picked the Navy.
Oh, okay.
I was kind of a skinny, really scrawny little guy. I didn't feel like I'd be a very good Marine. I put on quite a bit of weight, but they said I could go to the Marines. I didn't feel like I looked like a Marine, but they said I'd go to the Army or the Navy, so I picked the Navy.
Can you tell me a little about your experience in the Navy?
Well, I was in the part of the part that did repair work on the ship, and I was a ship fitter, striker, they called me. I was a seaman actually, very low rank. But if a hole was knocked in the ship, we had to repair it, you know. And, you know, kind of like a carpenter built houses, you know, but we were on the ship, did repair work. And that's pretty well what I did. We transported troops, you know. I was on a ship that transported troops, and we'd pick up troops in one area and transport them to another, you know.
Okay.
And we made several trips transporting troops here and there.
Do you remember from where to where?
From what?
Do you remember from where you transported them?
Well, we transported troops to China. We made port in China, and we transported them to some islands in the Pacific. I can't remember exactly all the places. We also transported Chinese troops. One area in China, they were occupational troops that you know, the Chinese were at war, Civil War at that time. And near the end of World War II, we transported one area in China to another.
Oh, okay.
And we transported Army personnel from the U.S. To islands in the Pacific. So I can't remember too good, but I remember we did several times. We had everybody on the ship would hold, you know, pretty well, in transporting. We also took their cargo on with them. A lot of times we'd have, you know, vehicles like Jeeps, things like that on the ship.
Okay.
And we had these troop ships had boats that when they got off from the islands, they'd set these boats over sides and load them with cargo and troops. They'd go on the islands.
Okay. Where were you at the time of Pearl Harbor when it happened?
I was still in Arkansas.
You're still?
About 15 years old. In 1941, I'd be about 15. And I don't know, I was just living on a farm, going to school.
Okay. So how old were you when they drafted you to the Army?
I was 18. It was right after my 18th birthday. I got a notice to go get my physical examination about a month after my 18th birthday. And I had to go take a physical. About a month later, I got a call to go take another physical, and I knew a little more advanced. And when after I took that, I was drafted right into the military, and I went to the Navy. I went to Farragut, Idaho. They had a training base in Farragut, Idaho, where we trained basic training. And that was about 4 months later. Our ship was commissioned in Astoria, Oregon. That means we loaded it onto a brand new ship, and it went down the Columbia River on its maiden voyage. And from there, we spent quite a bit of time, in training and learning. Learning how to do our job on the ship. And we never really saw war. The kind of ship I was on really wasn't a warship. It was, it's kind of a support kind of ship. So whenever we were in a place where there was airplanes flying over, bombers, our boats would go over the side, and they'd put out smoke, and they'd make a cloud over our ship, a cloud, so they didn't have radar back then. It hadn't been developed. So that's the way we'd sort of hide from under a cloud, make our own cloud.
So when you heard that the Jews were being taken to concentration camps, what were your feelings towards it?
Well, I felt that was wrong. Certainly, that was inhumane. It shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And that's, I think most people feel the same way about that. It was inhumanity to human beings, really bad. So I didn't feel good about that. I felt bad about it.
But when you heard that the Allied forces were getting closer to Berlin, what were you thinking? Were you thinking oh, thank God, the war's almost over?
When our troops were, I was very happy about it. It was a very proud day for Americans. A lot of Americans really, died. And so it was really a proud time for America. One of the great times for America. For certainly the way I felt about it. I'm sure nearly everybody did. It was a happy time.
When you heard that the United States was in war with Japan, what were your reactions?
Well, I felt like most people. Most people really felt angry at Japan about the way they started the war, Pearl Harbor. So